Today we have Errin Haines here, multi-awarded journalist, working as an editor-at-large for the 19th, also having the podcast The Amendment. And as journalists, we discover and uncover the truth. So when do you know that you're getting to the core of a matter when you're doing your research or when you're going on trips to uncover said truth?
Well, I think for us, really trying to accurately report on people's truths, like listening to people's stories, having them tell us in their own voice what their life is like, why certain issues might matter to them, why voting matters to them, how they are choosing to or not to participate in our elections or our democracy. Hearing from them about what is true for them on a daily basis is really such important work that I feel like we're doing at the 19th each and every day.
The 19th is known for its diversity, and almost 95% are women. The way you not only support the employees, as in leave when a family member is in dire need or even drop birth. How do you implement these systems strategically and make it a norm in companies, because we often do not see these in editorial offices as of today?
Thank you for asking about that, because that is something that we are very proud of. In addition to trying to reimagine what coverage needed to look like to be different than it has traditionally been in political journalism, we also thought a lot about what the culture of our newsroom could be and should be, and the newsroom that I think a lot of us who started the 19th wished that we had when we were younger journalists, and what a lot of our staff that is here now, what they quite frankly are asking for, and what they feel like they deserve in a newsroom, in a workplace, right? So that was something that our founders were very thoughtful about even before we started. What are kind of the sharp objects that we need to take off the table for women, for people of color, for queer people that are going to work in our organization? What do they need to succeed? What are benefits and the workplace infrastructure that they need, not to worry about their jobs, but to just be able to think about how to do their jobs better? And then I think the other way that what we know is that, this is something that can be done because we are doing it. And I don't say that for us to be virtue signaling in any way, but really just to say that we believe that these are best practices, and we believe that this is something that other newsrooms can do, but it does take a commitment, and it does take really being intentional and being thoughtful about and responsive to the needs of our colleagues, right? And so the other thing that we do is that we try to be transparent about that when we post open positions on social media, for example. We're very transparent about the salary range that we are offering people. We are very transparent about the benefits that people have if they are an employee of the 19th. And I think that does show the industry what we are about as a newsroom, and what someone can expect if they join our team. But then also, whether somebody joins our team or not, they can then take those job descriptions and that list of kind of benefits, and they can show it to another employer and say, look, the 19th is doing this. Is this something that you could be doing too, or is this something that I could also expect if I come to work here?
Now you're in a position of facilitating. Back then you chose journalism as a major in college, and you did write for a high school newspaper. So when you started at the Atlanta Daily World back then, I think it was the oldest continuously.
Black news.
Exactly. You had mentors, you had people who saw something in you, like Alex Scott and Paul Delaney. What does that mean for you to have people who see your potential in moments even of doubt? In specific words, the imposter syndrome.
Oh, wow. It meant everything, because so I actually didn't major in journalism. I majored in communications when I was in college, and my college didn't really have a journalism program. It didn't really have a very strong newspaper. And so, Georgia, the state where I'm from in the United States, does have some other colleges that do have very good journalism programs. And so I didn't know how, once I decided wanted to be a journalist, I didn't really know how to go about doing that. I didn't really know if I could do it or if I would be any good at doing it. And so, when I was able to join the National Association of Black Journalists as a student, That's how I was able to get connected with the Atlanta Daily World, where I met the publisher of that newspaper, Alexis Scott, who became, really such an influential mentor for me. And then going to my first National Association of Black Journalists convention and meeting Paul Delaney, one of the founders of NABJ, who also got his start working at the Atlanta Daily World. And so for me, I was like, wow, this person who went on to become an editor at the New York Times, like a very prominent journalist, he started at the same place where I was working. So that made me feel very hopeful. And then for people like Alexis, people like Paul to say, you're doing a good job, your work is good, keep going, you can do it, you can succeed in this profession. For somebody that looked like me to tell me that they believed in me and to show me that success was possible meant everything.
But also truly appreciate about you is not only your intellect, but the way you approach stories and the empathy that you bring to them. You humanize people through the way you're portraying not only their struggles, but also their joys. And you kind of push the boundaries of what a journalist looks like. Back then, I was like, for me, journalism was more about the work, but not really putting yourself out there. So when you appear, I think you kind of demonstrate to young black women, also young black men, that it is possible that there are different ways of journalism. And there's a quote of you when you own your own story, you seize your power. Do you have an anecdote of how you seize power in your journalistic career?
Yeah, I think that experience that I told you about working at the Atlanta Daily World, what that taught me at a very young age as a journalist was that our stories mattered, and that my lived experience as a black person, as a black woman, was valuable. It was a thing that helped me see stories that other people didn't see all the time. It was my superpower as a journalist, right? The thing that other people who maybe didn't look like me, but were also talented, this is the thing that I had that they didn't have. And so I really do feel like that is a lesson that journalists should as early as possible, because a lot of times in school we're taught to kind of leave our identity at the door when we are reporting, but no, like your actually helps you to tell stories. It helps you to connect with people on a human level, because at the end of the day, what are we doing as journalists if not asking people to share their story with us, and remembering that nobody owes us their story, right? And so if I can connect with somebody, as a human being first, that helps establish trust. That helps to really kind of release any kind of power dynamic between me as a reporter and them as a subject. Like, no, like, we are equal. Like, we're having an exchange, we're having a conversation, and I'm asking you for something that is very important. It's important to me, but it's also important, whatever that story is important to you, and I just try not to forget that.
So that people, in essence, feel heard telling their stories and feel like they're safe within your hands. So the last question that I wanted to ask you, as black journalists, we are often in all-white offices. So there might be topics, let's say right-wing extremism or different kind of projects that we are involved in. But it's not necessarily safe, because for these people, we are also people that they essentially. So how do you deal with that when you're in an editorial office and you lack someone to talk to? How do you go through these times, or how do you communicate your needs efficiently?
Well, this is honestly why the black journalism community is so valuable. There have been times early on in my career where I was one of the few or one of the only black people in my newsroom. And so I didn't necessarily have somebody who looked like me to talk to about challenges that I might have had around race. But what I did have was so many members of the National Association of Black Journalists, for example, my peers who were working in newsrooms in other parts of the country, and we could call each other or text each other or just send an email saying, hey, I had a really hard day today, or hey, I'm dealing with this kind of challenging issue with an editor or a source around race, and I don't know what to do. Have you ever dealt with this before? Can you help me? And even those mentors, again, the mentors who are black, who have been where we have been, who we can talk to about challenges that we have, because they've almost certainly also experienced whatever that challenge is, and they can maybe have advice for how to handle a situation, or they have a lesson that they learned from going through that situation that might help us handle it even better than they were able to handle it when it happened to them. So just understand, even though it might feel lonely when you are in that newsroom by yourself, just know that you're not alone, because you do have other Black journalists around the world, honestly, as I'm learning here, who can be helpful to you when you find yourself struggling, because you feel like it's just you.
Thank you for your time, for your lessons, and for your presence in the journalism world as not only a Black journalist, but an excellent Black journalist.
Thank you, Carel. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing, and I'm looking forward to following your work going forward.
Thank you. Until next time. That's it. How do you feel?
I feel good. Y'all are great. That was fun.